Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Splatcast. I'm Rhett. I have with me Jace and Anthony.
What's up, guys? Happy Sunday. Happy Splat Day.
Yeah, so we are basically recording this on the eve of the regular season. We're getting kicked off on Tuesday. So, of course, this will be our last preseason episode. So what we're going to talk about today, we're each going to go through our playoff brackets based on the standings that we kind of set up in our last episode. We're going to go through the entirety of the playoffs today. We're going to talk about conference finals MVPs, NBA finals MVP, obviously, and then we're also going to talk about end of regular season awards. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into it, y'all. Let's start over in the Western Conference, and we'll start with that 9-10 play-in matchup. Jace, who do you have going head-to-head there in the 9-10 play-in spot?
Yeah, so from our preseason predictions, my 9 and 10 were the Lakers at 9 and Pelicans at 10. I don't think there's like a lot of juice to either one of these teams, in all honesty. I do think in this one single game, I think that I'm going to go with the Pelicans. I don't think it's going to be easy. I think the Lakers, primarily just LeBron and Anthony Davis are a handful. But in terms of postseason success, I think that the Pelicans are set up a little bit better as a team. So I'm going to pick them to win that game. I think it'll be pretty close if they were to match up, but I'm going to ride with the Pelicans on this one.
Cool. Yeah, so I have the same matchup, Jay. So mine would be Lakers would be the 9 seed, Pelicans would be the 10. So it'd be those two head-to-head in LA, right?
Right.
So I had the Lakers taking that game. Based on what I've seen in the preseason, that Lakers offense looks pretty significantly different than what it did last year. And again, I know that's preseason. We're going to see some different names and faces in there than what we saw in those games. But I do kind of believe in LeBron and AD and the rest of those guys to get that offense flowing a little bit better. Now playing in what appears to, be a more defined system on that end. So two pretty talented teams, I think. These play-in matchups could be fun across both conferences, but yeah, I'm going to go with the Lakers at home, squeaking that one out, moving on to the next round there.
And really quick, I do want to just acknowledge that I am betting against LeBron in one single game, which, is usually not the way to go.
Unsolid footing, typically. Yeah.
Right. But I don't know. I'm going different this year. I'm believing in myself this year.
Changing of the guard this year, potentially.
Right.
Cool. Okay, Ant, who do you got there 9-10 in the West?
Yeah, Jace, betting against LeBron, man, not so fast. Because I got Lakers Rockets in that 9-10 matchup. Again, Lakers hosting. I honestly, man, I'll pick the Lakers and LeBron in a one game take all, whether it's the
really hard
the
to pick
against tournament or if it's the mid-season tournament. Whatever. They're gonna treat that like it's their championship. And
right.
And if AD is healthy, I'll pick them because it seems like, again, for the Lakers, if they can make it to the playoffs, that's like they'll be happy with that.
That's where they play. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay, well, let's jump over to the 9-10 in the East. Obviously, so just to recap there, Jace has the Pelicans moving out of that into the next round of the play-in. Anthony and I both have the Lakers moving into the next round of the play-in there in the West. Let's go to the East. Ant, let's stay with you. Who do you have in the 9-10 in the East?
Oof. I got Raptors-Hawks, which won't be the most thrilling game. They may televise that on Nickelodeon or Telemundo or something. But I don't know. I'll pick the Hawks at home. Again, I'm going with the home teams here. I said this on the last episode that in the East, there's always one play-in team or maybe one play-in matchup that's like, how is this?
What are they doing here?
These teams aren't like serious contenders or real playoff teams anyway. But yeah, I mentioned how I'm kind of high on the Hawks and Trae Young to be better this year. So yeah, I'll pick them at home for one game.
Okay, so that was the Hawks moving on through there, Ant?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm actually right there with you, Ant, man. Great minds think alike, it appears. So I also have the Raptors and the Hawks, and I have the Raptors at 9. So this game would, obviously theoretically be there in Toronto. Just experience, kind of like what you alluded to, Ant. Scotty obviously is the guy there in Toronto. Quickly and Barrett, which we talked about. I really like all three of those guys. Just Trae being, as disrespected as I think he is, and I know you agree, Jace, I think you think the same, but I could just see him going nuclear in something like this. If they can find a way to get into that play-in, which I think they probably will, he's going to win them a game, at least. I do have the Hawks moving on there into the next round of the play-in. Jace, who do you have there, 9-10 in the East?
9-10 in the East, I have the Hawks and the Hornets. Right there with you guys. I'm going with the Hawks, playing at home, and I think they're just a slightly better team. Trae Young, best player on the court. First time, really, with any significant game for the Hornets in quite a while. So I think the Hawks take care of business and move on to the second round of the play-in.
Awesome. So we all have the Hawks going on there. Okay, cool. Yeah, so let's go back over to the West. So this will be the 7-8 matchup. Obviously, the winner of this game will move on as the 7 seed. The loser will face either the Pelicans or the Lakers, again, based on our projections there, in the second round of the play-in. Jace, let's stick with you. And you had the Pelicans moving on from the first game.
Correct.
So who are you taking out of there, that 7 and 8, moving on, playing them?
In the 7-8 for me, I have the Kings hosting the Rockets. Talked about what I think about the Rockets a little bit last episode. I think that they're, super athletic team, still getting stuff figured out. But I like them. I think that they're, a really exciting team, and I'm taking the Rockets to upset the Kings and get that 7 seed in the West.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I would also have the Kings hosting the Rockets there. I am going to differ from you on that one, Jason. I know I said a lot of positive things about the Kings, and I still do agree. I just think kind of like what we talked about with Reed. I think he's going to force his way in there, give them kind of more pop, playmaking pop, scoring pop there, along with Fred VanVleet, who is someone we didn't talk about, guy with a ton of experience in those moments. And I just think we talked about with the Rockets in the regular season, the main thing for me is just kind of a too many mouths to feed type situation potentially there. They're probably going to have to experiment with some of those lineups in the regular season. I do think towards the end of the year, they have enough talent and enough depth to where if they're able to figure some of that stuff out, they could be a pretty interesting team in this play-in range. So I'm going to give the Rockets an edge there. I'm going to have them moving on and playing the Lakers in the second round of my play-in. Okay. Ant, who do you got?
Real quick, sorry, I don't know if I may have misspoken, but I did have the Rockets winning that game as well.
I'm sorry. I was looking at my thing because I had changed my notes on the seedings.
Gotcha.
So I was looking at mine. I was kind of panicked because I had some stuff move around on me in terms of who's actually in the play.
No, I just wanted to make sure that I got that one out there before we moved on.
Oh, so wait, it would be Houston would go to the 7 seed. I'm tripping.
Yes.
Houston would go to the 7 seed. Okay. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah, same for me, of course. I got Houston going to the 7 seed.
Cool.
Well, I think both of y'all are tripping. Because I already eliminated the Rockets. And in my 7-8 matchup, I got the Grizzlies hosting the Pelicans, which would be a really great game, I think. And I'm kind of going back and forth with it in my mind as y'all are talking of who would win that. But I got to go with the home team again, the Grizzlies. Ja's the difference. And we'll see, like, if Zion's playing. Zion, is either hurt at the beginning of the year or the end of the year. He's we'll see how healthy both teams are. Both teams battle injuries.
Yeah.
So, whoever's the healthiest and whoever's the home team. In this case, I'll go with the Grizzlies moving on to play the Lakers.
Okay, Grizzlies moving on to play the Lakers. Okay, so just to kind of recap. So
wait, actually, no, because the Grizzlies would win. They would get the 7th seed.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, this
so the Lakers would play the Pelicans for the 8th seed.
Okay. Right. Okay. So just to recap, I myself have Houston beating that Sacramento team in the 7-8 play-in game. So that would bring Houston to play the 2 seed. They would become the 7 seed there. So in my last round of the play-in, I have the Lakers at the Kings. Jace, who would you have playing the Lakers there? Because you also had moving Houston into the 7th seed. Who would you have playing? Oh, I'm sorry, you had the Pelicans.
I have the Pelicans playing in Sacramento.
Okay, Pelicans in Sacramento. Okay. And Ant, who did you have there in the West in your playing game?
Pelicans at Memphis.
Got it. Okay, Pelicans at Memphis. Got it. Okay, so let's move back over to the East now. So 7-8. Ant, who do you have in that game?
Ooh, I got the Magic versus the Heat. Which,
okay,
again, would be a great matchup.
Yeah, it would be.
And it would be in Orlando. So I want to pick Miami, but I don't know. I've picked the home team every time so far. So I think Miami will be in the playoff, but I think Orlando will take this one.
Yeah, well, we've seen that Miami team do it that way before,
That's
so
kind of the only way they can do it right now. Yeah. Past few years.
Yeah. And I have Cleveland and Miami in that 7-8 game, so that would be Cleveland hosting Miami there. I've got the Cavs winning that game. It's hard for me to pick against Miami in that kind of situation. I just think Cleveland has a better roster, better situation at the moment. And I kind of like the idea of like having that Miami team like forced into that do or die position, because when they're there, it kind of can get interesting. Just like I said a second ago, like when they are in that position with their back against the wall, it's usually when they play their best basketball. I've got Cleveland moving into the 7 seed. That gives me Miami moving into that second round play-in matchup against Atlanta there. Jace, who do you have 7 and 8 in the East?
My 7 seed was my hot take in our standings. The 7 and 8 matchup in the East that I have is the Pacers hosting the Heat. I think Pacers just kind of outclass them. Their offense would be way too much. I don't think it's necessarily a very close game. So Pacers move into that 7 seed and send the Heat into the do or die playing game against the Hawks.
Okay, so Ant and I both have – all have the same one. Okay. All right. So, we are finally here to the last round of the play-in. So, I've got Lakers at Sacramento there. Jace, remind us who you have. Pelicans at Sacramento?
Oops, I'm so sorry. I was on my other side. Yep, Pelicans at Sacramento.
And Ant, who do you have there in the West in that second round of the play-in?
It would be Lakers at Pelicans.
Okay. Jace, let's go to you with the final round of the play-in. This is for the last playoff spot in the West. Let's go to you, Jace. Who do you got taking that one?
I have the Kings taking it. Kind of like I was saying with the Pacers, I think that they just kind of outmatch the Pelicans. I think the offense is going to be too much to handle, too many pieces, and I think the Kings take this to match up with the Thunder in the first round.
Great. Yeah, so I'm right there with you. Obviously, I have them playing the Lakers. It really just comes down to the roster for me. And I'm gonna say I think Malik Monk is the difference here in this game. I think he's going to have a big game at home to get him in there. Because they missed out last year, didn't they? They lost in the play-in last year, didn't they?
I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, really good pieces, obviously, across the board there. Really for both those teams, some pretty interesting guys. And, yeah, I think Monk's the difference here. I think Sacramento gets into that 8 seed going up, just like you said, Jace, against Oklahoma City. Ant, how about you there in the final round of the play-in in the West?
I would have Lakers at Pelicans, and I'm going to go with the Lakers because if OKC gets that 1 seed, I think LA was kind of thinking that same thing last year. They're like, they still view OKC as the youngest in the class. Like, LeBron's, looking at that as, guys, we can take them. Like, we don't want Denver. We don't want Minnesota. Like, we want OKC round 1. I think they would go all in on that game at New Orleans, knock out the Pelicans, and would set up a great 8 versus 1 matchup against OKC.
All right, cool. So there we are. We are solidified in the West now. So let's wrap it up in the East. Let's get this bracket set in the East. Ant, who do you got there in the second round playing in the East?
Hawks in Miami. I would love to see the Hawks back in the playoffs. I would love, more specifically, for the Hawks to be 7th playing New York because they hate Trae Young there.
That'd be awesome.
But I don't think it's going to happen. I think Miami, it's funny. Yeah, we all know like how they kind of limp into the playoffs. Like they'll probably get blown out in the 7-8 matchup, and then they'll blow, Atlanta out to make the playoffs. Like that's just how they are. And I think they'll play Boston round 1.
Yeah, this is lame, but I'm the same way, Ant. Like, I could certainly see them getting blown out in Cleveland. They're going to turn right around and blow out the Hawks. It goes for me, the stuff about Jimmy in a contract year. Obviously, the playoffs is always where he plays his best ball. He's just the highest level competitor in this league. I'm a big Jimmy fan. And I also kind of think, like, based on what I've been seeing from Bam here and there, he feels a little bit disrespected right now. I certainly view him as, like, one of the great defensive players in the game. But I think he kind of feels like he's got something to prove, and this would be a good place for him to do it. So I think he will. I think Miami gets that one pretty easily. And, they move into the 8 seed for me there in the playoffs. Jace, who do you got wrapping up the East?
I also have the Heat hosting the Hawks. Completely agree with you guys. I think the Heat take care of it pretty easily. I think it comes down more than anything to the experience for me of Miami, kind of their core that they have there. They know what it takes. They know what they have to do. I think that it is a very gritty game, but I think that they end up kind of bullying the Hawks into the 7 seed and Miami, or into the 8 seed, I should say, excuse me. And Miami goes on to take on Boston in the first round.
Sweet. Okay, so we've got all of our brackets set now. So we are into the final 8. We are into the playoffs. So I think what I want to do is start with the 1-8 matchup in the West, and we'll just kind of move down the bracket on both sides of the way here. So, Jace, let's stay with you. 1-8 in the West. Remind us who you have, and then give us your prediction for that series. If you want to say in how many games, feel free. I'm going to try to incorporate that for mine.
Gotcha. Yeah, the 1-8 matchup in the West for me is going to be the Oklahoma City Thunder as the 1 seed, taking on the Kings. I've used this saying a lot so far in this episode, but Thunder just are too much for them. They outclass them. I'm going to say Thunder get the sweep in 4. Go ahead and move on. I think Sacramento, is not a bad team. I just think that the Thunder are kind of on a different level than them at the moment. Go in there, take care of business, just keep pushing forward and get this one wrapped up as soon as possible. Thunder in 4.
Got it. Okay, great. Yeah, so I've got Thunder Kings there. I'm picking the Thunder to win that series. I'm going to say Thunder in 5. It's just really hard for me to pick sweeps. I know it happens every year. Historically, this Kings team has kind of been a problem for the Thunder, at least in the regular season. they've matched up really well with us historically, primarily, due to Sabonis, the problems that he presents. Obviously, a really, really, really good player. I do think Sacramento has enough roster-wise to get a game from Oklahoma City in this series. But yeah, just like you said, Jace, just too much there. Thunder, gets this done fairly easily in 5, and they're going to move on to the second round. Ant, how about you there in the West?
Ooh, I got a big showdown, Thunder Lakers. I think a lot of the TNT guys will pick LA, but
not this year.
I don't know how many games. No, I'll pick the Thunder because we'll have home court. They could go 7. I don't know if the Lakers
7.
It could. It's LeBron.
It could. Yeah, no, it could. I don't think it's gonna. Yeah.
I don't know. We don't play the best against the Lakers. It's going to be interesting too. I'm thinking about how the season is going to be in April next year. Like, it's so far away, but the Thunder play the Lakers twice at home in April, like in the last 10 games of the season. It's going to be interesting because the Lakers will start thinking about seeding, and maybe they'll rest their guys against OKC in order to play us in the playoffs. I
just don't believe that anybody's going to be wanting to play the Thunder, like gaming it to play the Thunder. I think that's over with.
I wouldn't advise that, but I still think it's just like the vets versus the youth. And that's the Lakers' only way they think that they can move on.
I hear where you're coming from, Anthony.
Yeah, it's not crazy. Yeah, no, it's not crazy.
I do think that, when we're looking at Mavs, Nuggets, Timberwolves, Thunder, like who would everybody want to play? I could believe, thinking the Thunder at the moment, but I just think they're going to be so deadly throughout the regular season that that's not going to last for very long.
Yeah, I mean, if you want a game to play us, good luck. Because, I mean, all 3 of those teams are really good at the top. I don't think anybody's going to be excited about the prospect of playing any of those 3 teams in the West in a 7-game series. It's going to be tough. But, yeah, so you're going Thunder in 7.
Yeah, I'll go Thunder in 7.
Thunder and
Lakers
7.
Are
okay.
Out. Thunder move on.
Got it. Okay, got it. So we all have Thunder moving on out of that first round series to the conference semis. So let's go over to the East 1-8. I think we all have Boston, Miami there, right?
Right.
Yep.
And let's start with you there. 1-8. Who do you got moving on?
These teams have had great matchups over the years, but the most recent one being last year, it wasn't even close. I don't think Celtics ran through them. I think the same thing would happen again. Celtics have been there. They'll probably do what they did last year, like win every series. Like, they'll drop a game, one of those games, where they're kind of like, seems like they're not trying or just have an off night. But then they kill it in every other game of the series. So I'll go Celtics in 5.
Yeah. So I'm going to agree with you there, Ann. I'm going to go Celtics in 5 there. And for Boston in this playoffs, I'm going to assume like moderate health for them. Okay. So kind of similar to how it was last year where Porzingis was like often a question mark. I think he ended up playing the majority of their playoff games. And, when he was out there, they were just dominant. But, yeah, I'm going to say Celtics in 5. Now, we mentioned it on the last episode, kind of that factor of like the hangover for the Celtics being defending champs. And I do think that's going to be a factor. I don't think it's going to be a factor if they were to match up with Miami, just because that's sort of become like a rivalry. We know Miami doesn't like Boston. I'm not sure I am 100% sure how Boston feels about Miami, but I do think that knowledge is present in Boston's mind, right? And if these two teams were to match up, I think Boston's going to be ready to roll. They're going to be locked in, and they'll look like the best team in the NBA after this first-round series. They'll take care of Miami in 5.
See, I'm kind of piggybacking off what you had to say, Rhett. I think Boston's going to come out in the first round looking to kind of stomp on those assumptions that they may have a little bit of a hangover from last year. I think that they're going to be fired up. I am picking another sweep in the first round in the 1-8 matchup, Boston in 4.
Boston 4. Okay. Cool. Okay. Yeah. So we've got Oklahoma City moving on in the West out of that one. We've got Boston moving on in the East, and we are all the same on those two picks. So let's go to the 4-5. I think these middle matchups, this 4-5, this 3-6, this is maybe where we'll have a little bit of a healthy disagreement, but we'll see. So, Jace, let's stay with you. Who do you have 4-5 there in the West, and who do you got moving on?
In the West, in my 4-5, I have the Suns at 4, Nuggets at 5. I think that that's going to be one of the better first-round matchups. Two completely different teams, totally different play styles. I just feel like this offseason has really kind of hurt the Nuggets. We talked about this last episode. They have some really good role players, really good pieces that could kind of make the next step. But I'm expecting a little bit of the Suns to kind of get things figured out. I think primarily Kevin Durant and Devin Booker in the playoffs are two very scary players. So I'm going to say the Suns in 7 over the Nuggets in the first round.
Suns in 7 over the Nuggets. So Jokic does not make it out of the first round. Wow. Okay. Yeah, so I have Memphis hosting Denver in this 4-5 matchup in my bracket. I'm going to go Nuggets. Obviously, this Memphis team, they're fairly experienced in the playoffs themselves. They haven't had a ton of success, but they've found themselves up against some really good teams. I'm thinking of that year where they played Golden State. Wasn't that the year that Golden State kind of went on a surprise run and ended up winning the whole thing? And Memphis kind of tested them. Like, Memphis was kind of the young guns that year. But yeah, I think Memphis is going to, by this time, and they're in the playoffs, they're going to be really good. Edey's going to be a factor in this series. I think y'all are both Edey fans. I know I am. Yep. Obviously, Ja is Ja. He's a superstar in this league, but it just comes down to Jokic. I think when you're taking into consideration, like I know I said on the last episode, I think Luke is the best individual player in the NBA. But in terms of playing within the context of the team, just Jokic is the best player in that regard for me, just given that he's been with, guys like Gordon and Murray for so long. They just know each other so well. The supporting cast has obviously changed, but I do trust guys like especially Strother to step up for him and do what they need to do in these kind of, series that are fairly even on paper. It looks like Michael Porter Jr. may be ready to add a little bit to his game. If he can kind of take a step or a half a step forward there, Strother can kind of step in and fill that role. I think they'll be able to move into the second round there. So I'm going to take Denver moving on to the second round in that 4-5 matchup.
Nice. Is it my turn?
Yeah, that's you, Ant. 4-5 in the West.
Okay. I got the Mavs hosting the Kings. And I love the Kings at home. I think it's a tough place to play for anyone. Beam. They light the beam. They bring the boom. All that. But no, I would say Mavs having the home court advantage. I don't think it goes 7. I think the Kings will get a couple. But I still think, Mavs are a better team. So I'll go Mavs beating the Kings, and I'll call it 6.
Okay. So that would mean I've got Oklahoma City, Denver there in the second round after those two matchups. Jace, you want to say who you've got there after the first two?
In the second round, I have the Thunder and the Suns matching up.
Okay, Thunder and the Suns in the second round. And then, Ant, who do you got?
It would be Thunder Mavs rematch.
Thunder Mavs. Okay, got it. All right, so we all picked Boston moving out of that first round series, the 1-8 matchup. Let's go to the 4-5 in the East. Ant, let's start with you there. Who do you have in the 4-5 matchup? Who do you have coming out?
4-5 matchup in the East, I got Bucks versus Pacers, which is tough because the Pacers are going to have this historically great offense, but the Bucks have historically great Giannis. So I'm going to go with Giannis.
Well said.
Valid argument.
I'm going to go Giannis versus all of those yellow Pacers, and it could go 7. But I want to see Bucks versus Celtics in that second round. I think that would be epic. So yeah, I'll go Bucks in 7 for the 4-5.
Okay, so there's Ant with the conference finalist Pacers exiting the bracket there in the 4-5. I think that's an interesting pick. If that's the matchup, though, I wouldn't be shocked if that's how it turns out. So yeah, good pick there. So I've got Philly as the 4. They're going to be hosting Orlando in this 4-5 matchup. I'm going to say Orlando in 7 here. I know they're going to do everything they can to get primarily those 2 guys healthy. Let me just say, Maxi's not a concern to me here. Okay. Like, I think Maxi's going to be hopefully, likely healthy for this, ready to rock and roll, and very, very, very good. Okay. But I just, I hope that the measures taken to get PG and Embiid their healthy work. We just haven't really seen it, especially with PG these last few years. And we've also seen Embiid be neutralized, whether it be due to health or just game planning from the opposing side. He's been neutralized in quite a few playoff series. Obviously never been a conference finalist. I don't think this is the year that he gets there. So I'm going to say Orlando in 7 there. They're going to move on and face Boston in the second round.
I like that. My 4-5 in the East, I have the Magic at 4 and the Cavaliers at 5. So we get a rematch of the first round matchup from last season. I don't necessarily think that the Cavaliers have changed all that much from last season. And I am expecting the Magic to really kind of make a step in the right direction. I think it'll be a similar, gritty, tough-nosed fight in the first round. But this season, I do have the Magic coming out on top. I am stuck between 6 and 7 for that matchup. But I think I am going to go with the Magic in 6, heading to the second round to match up with the Celtics.
Okay, so Magic, Boston for you, Jace.
Mm-hmm.
I've got Magic, Boston. Ant, who do you have there playing Boston in the second round?
Milwaukee,
right. Okay, cool. Let's move back over to the West for the 3-6. Jace, let's start with you there. 3-6. Who do you have matching up? Who do you have coming out?
Yeah, 3-6. I have the Mavericks at 3, taking on the Grizzlies at 6. I think before the playoffs start, this is going to be one of the more anticipated matchups coming into it. I think basically all the games are going to be really close, really hard fought. But I am going to go with the Mavericks in 6. A lot of it's going to come down to the matchup between Luka and Ja. Ja is awesome, very good player, but he ain't Luka. And so I'm going to take the Mavs in a very hard-fought 6.
All right, yeah, so I've got the Mavs here too. I've got the Mavs hosting the Suns in this series. I'm going to go Mavs, and I think I'm going to say 6 here. I almost said 5. I just, they're going to try to put some pressure on those guards up front, primarily through Booker, and somebody's going to have to guard KD for Dallas, obviously.
It's a big ask.
Yeah, I just, it comes down to Luka for me. I just don't think they have the infrastructure over there in Phoenix to defend this team. We saw how tough they were to defend last year. I think they probably got a little bit better offensively this past offseason in Dallas. We'll see how it works out. Obviously, there's some new faces there, but yeah, they have the size on the interior to complement what they're going to obviously do on the perimeter, primarily with Kyrie and Luka. I just don't think they have enough firepower to slow them down. I could see a lot of these games being a track meet. KD and Book going crazy as well. But, yeah, just too much in Dallas there. I'm going to say Dallas moves on in 6 to the next round.
Dallas in how many games, Rhett? I got a
6. Dallas in 6 for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're going to bring all those memes back of the Luka owning D-Book, which he always has, always continue will.
Luka, I mean, no disrespect to D-Book, but they're kind of in different stratospheres in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good pick. In my 3-6 matchup, I got the Nuggets and Phoenix. And unlike Jace, I don't see Jokic getting knocked out in the first round. I thought it was weird last year not having him in the conference finals. So yeah. I think that's a great matchup because those teams play so differently. So I'll go Nuggets game 7 at home, winning it.
All right, Nuggets in 7. Nice. Okay, cool. So let's jump over to the 3-6 in the East because we've almost got our conference semifinals set. So, Ant, let's stay with you, 3-6 in the East. Who's the matchup? Who's taking it?
I got Sixers versus Cavs. In the last episode, I explained the Sixers being, let's say they're fully healthy. Let's say they're fully participating in the regular season to get that 3 spot. And let's say that they're fully healthy for this playoff matchup. I think they're better than the Cavs. And I've been picking the last few matchups to go 7 games. I'll pick it again because the Cavs are good at home. That Quicken Loans Arena turns up in the playoffs.
That's a good environment. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great, they'll be pumped up to have Embiid there. But I like that Embiid and Paul George duo. I think that's good enough to get him into the next round.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, so I'm realizing now, looking at comparing my bracket to what we talked about in the last episode, I had flip-flopped a couple of these, but it's okay. It's not really going to matter at the end of the day. But yeah, so on my bracket here, I've got Indiana, the 3, hosting Milwaukee, the 6. Obviously, I flip-flopped some of that. Again, it's not going to matter. I'm going to take Indiana here. I think based on what I talked in the past episode, it would actually be Philly that they would be playing. But yeah, I mean, I got to say goodbye to Giannis here, unfortunately. And again, it feels crazy. It feels crazy, but just they're not going to be able to stop them on the perimeter. I don't really think there are that many teams, and we're going to talk about this soon. There are very few teams in the East that are going to be able to slow that Indiana team down on the perimeter. And I just don't think a Milwaukee could do it. I don't think a Philly could do it if that's the way it shakes out. Just too much offense from Indiana here. They're going to move on to the second round. I would say if it's Indiana, Milwaukee there, I'm going to say Indiana in 7. I'm going to say Indiana moves on.
And you're right that the Pacers, they gained a lot of confidence in last year's playoff run.
They were in the conference finals. Yeah.
So they're expecting to go back. So
yeah, why not? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So for my 3-6 here, I have the Bucks at 3, kind of my surprise faller for the East. I would say I have the 76ers as my 6th seed. I think that this could be potentially one of the better matchups in the first round. I'm going to take the Bucks. I talked about this last week. I think that Giannis is kind of going to be coming into this season looking to remind people of how dominant he is. But yeah, 76ers, they could get it figured out and be a lot more successful than kind of what I'm expecting. But we haven't really seen them be able to adjust in the past and, kind of get things figured out, especially for the playoffs. So I'm going to take the Bucks here over the Sixers. I'm going to say in 6 games.
Okay, Bucks over the Sixers in 6. Okay. Cool. Okay, well, let us then move back over to the West. So let's just do a quick recap of who we got here in the second round in the West. So I've got the 1 seed Oklahoma City Thunder facing off against the 5 seed Nuggets in one of those series. And then in the other series, I have Dallas facing off against Minnesota. So let's start with that 1 seed matchup. So I'm going to have Oklahoma City taking this one in 6 against Denver. I think
we
skipped 2-7.
Oh, yeah. We did. No, we did. I didn't have that highlighted. That's okay. We can cut it out.
Okay.
Thanks for catching me.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, with that, let's go over to the 2-7 in the West. Okay, yeah, 2-7 in the West. Jace, let's start with you there. Who do you got? 2-7, who takes it?
My 2-7 in the West, I have the Timberwolves at 2 hosting the Rockets. I am expecting the Rockets to kind of be a surprise team this season, a lot better than a lot of people are projecting. I don't think that's going to matter too much whenever we get into the actual playoffs, especially matched up with a team as good as Minnesota. So I'm going to take the Wolves moving on here in 5. The Rockets have, in the next handful of years, the potential to become a really good team. I don't think that they're going to be there this season, but, first round experience for them will be good, even if it is just 5 games. But Wolves are much better. Anthony Edwards is, on a different level than anybody the Rockets have, I believe. So, yeah, give me the Wolves in 5, moving on to take on the Mavs.
Yeah, so I also have Wolves Rockets here. I think I'm going to pick a sweep here. I'm going to have the Rockets sweeping the Timberwolves. Just kidding. Just kidding. I'm going to take the Wolves to sweep the Rockets here. Obviously a big thing here would be lack of experience for the Rockets. First time they're going to find themselves in a position like this with this team. But the main thing I think here in this series, I talked about, I think it was in the last episode, but I talk about who's your guy and how good is your guy and how much better is your guy than their guy. Minnesota's guy is going to be a lot better than Houston's guy. And I don't think Houston, even by this point, I wouldn't be absolutely shocked if they're not quite sure who their guy is. They're going to be good. They're going to be pretty deep, But yeah, Minnesota's guy is going to be a lot better than Houston's guy here. So Minnesota's going to get this one done. And I'm going to pick a sweep. 4-0 Wolves here.
Yeah, I got the Wolves hosting the Grizzlies in the 2-7. We also need to do a bracket of the actual mascot matchups, because if it
that'd
was
be
Wolf,
another really good off-season episode. Yeah,
yeah. No, if it was a Wolf versus a Grizzly, I would pick the Grizzly to win. But in this case, we're all going Wolves. That's a great matchup, Wolves versus Grizzlies. That would be must-see TV, but the Wolves...
That would be really fun, yeah.
They're too good. I would even go Wolves in 5.
Okay. Wolves in 5 over Grizzlies. And are we assuming a healthy Grizzlies this year, Ant?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, so let's get back. This is our last first-round matchup, guys. Eastern Conference 2-7. Let's stay with you, Ant. Who do you got there and who's taking it?
Let's see. East 2-7 would be Knicks versus Magic. We're all high on the Knicks. We're high on the Magic too, but there's levels, So got to go Knicks. Brunson, he's comfortable in the playoffs. Madison Square Garden, that's going to be awesome. I'll do Knicks in 5.
Okay, yeah. So I've got the Knicks here, obviously in the 2 seed. I've got them playing Cleveland. So I'm with you, Ant. I'm going to go Knicks. I'm going to say here Knicks in 6. I almost wanted to go 7 here if this is indeed the matchup. I think Cleveland is pretty well put together on paper. I think, new coach, they may struggle a little bit at the end of the year, but by this point, it's definitely quite possible they've put it all together. If they have, I think they're going to match up pretty good with a team like the Knicks on paper. pretty, well-rounded in that first five. They've got a little bit of depth. They're going to be able to stretch the floor. And I think Cat really is going to be the difference maker. Again, if this was the matchup, I think we may see some flip-flop in a series between these two teams as far as like which of those bigs is going to guard Cat. And I think regardless of who it is, obviously I think Mobley's like a really, really good defender, but he could present problems for either one of those guys guarding him, whether it be in the post or the perimeter. So yeah, obviously new group for the Knicks. Maybe they get some curveballs here in this first round series, but I think they figure out a way to dispatch the Cavs, and the Knicks are going to move on to the next round for me.
In this matchup for me, I also have the Knicks at the 2 seed, but I have them taking on the Indiana Pacers as the 7 seed. I used to pray for times like this for a matchup of these guys in the first round. I think that this would be must-see TV. If it panned out how I have my bracket right now, I think that this is pretty hands down the best matchup in the first round.
That would be a sick matchup, yeah.
Like, so much fun to watch. But I'm not picking an upset. I'm going with the Knicks moving on, but I think it's going to be in a very tough 7 games.
Yeah, I don't think, we all think the Knicks are going to be pretty good, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's great. They'll probably be tested, and it'll look like not so great against a team they should probably handle relatively easily, mm-hmm. just because there's a bunch of new stuff. So, yeah, I think that's a smart pick. Okay, sweet. So, yeah, with that, y'all, we are out of the first round. Now, brackets can be a little bit tricky, a little bit confusing, but I think we did okay there. We're all feeling pretty good about our picks, I think. So, let's just do, we'll start in the West. But let's just do a quick overview of who we have moving into the semifinal games. So I've got Oklahoma City and Denver in one of my series, and then I have Dallas and Minnesota on the other side of the bracket there in the West. For the East, I have Boston and Orlando. In the other series, I have Indiana and the Knicks. Ant, you want to give us a quick recap of where your bracket stands?
Yeah, in the West, it's both rematches of last year. Thunder, Mavs, Wolves, Nuggets.
Cool. That's sick.
Yeah. And then the East, Celtics, Bucks, and Knicks, Sixers.
Okay, cool.
What I've got Thunder taking on the Suns, and then another rematch from last year, Mavs and Timberwolves. On the opposite side in the East, I have Boston taking on Orlando, and then the New York Knicks taking on Milwaukee.
All right. Sweet. So with that, let's get right into those semifinal matchups. Jace, let's start with you. Let's start with the top of your bracket there in the West. So winner of the 1-8 versus winner of the 4-5.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you got in there, and who's winning it?
This is where I have the Thunder and the Suns. I think this would be some kind of like headline stuff with the Thunder taking on KD in the playoffs.
Yeah, that'd be so good.
I don't think, even though I'm expecting the Suns to kind of like get back to where a lot of people thought they should have been last year in terms of how like dangerous of a team they are, I don't think that they're nearly deep enough to really compete too well with the Thunder. I think by this time, assuming the Thunder have health throughout their rotation, whether that's 8 or 9 guys, whatever they end up going with. So I'm taking the Thunder here. I don't think it's necessarily going to be all that close. So I'm going to say the Thunder in a relatively smooth 6.
I wanted you to say Thunder sweep them so bad.
Thunder sweep the playoffs.
I just, no disrespect to Kevin Durant as a player. I still don't like him, and I really don't mind saying it.
Yeah.
Great basketball player, obviously, like all-time great basketball player. I don't like him, and I don't really mind saying it.
Sure.
Okay, yeah. So top of my bracket there in the West, I've got Oklahoma City and Denver. I do think this matchup presents problems for the Thunder, right, as a Thunder fan. In the past, we played small in most of our best lineups, right? The lineups that like we want to have out there have been small. I don't think we're necessarily going to have to do that this year, like we talked about in the previous episode. And I do think this series where, if you take a look at, let's say, the top 3 to 5 players, I do think Oklahoma City has an edge there in terms of talent altogether. Again, Jokic is Jokic. I totally understand that. But I think if you look at the top 5 players on both those teams, I think this is where, those problems for Denver, like we talked about, losing guys, from their title run teams, maybe their contract situations weren't as good for the team as they would have hoped. I think that this is where stuff like that starts to show for Denver. And I do have Oklahoma City moving on. I'm going to say Oklahoma City in 6 here. And that moves Oklahoma City on into the Western Conference Finals for both me and Jace. So, Ant, who do you got there? Who's moving on to the conference finals?
Oh, for the 1-4 in the West, I got Thunder Mavs, which would be an epic rematch of last year.
It's a big one.
It's going to be awesome. I think it's a rivalry that the NBA is missing out on. I think it should be a Christmas Day game. I think these teams don't really like each other. I know Luka doesn't like playing Lou Dort. I know Mavs fans don't like Lou Dort. We don't like Luka. All of that stuff being so close in proximity. I think the Thunder played the Mavs pretty well last year. I mean, Shea was
as good as anybody, I'd say, except Boston.
Shea was the leading scorer in 5 out of those 6 games, going up against the Mavs. I think it's going 7. I would say Thunder in 6, but they got Clay, so Game 6 Clay will probably do his thing against us. But Thunder adding Caruso, they got help to guard Luka. I don't know. They got Kyrie. It's tough. But yeah, I'll go Thunder in 7. So
Thunder in 7 against the Mavs. Yeah, so I do want to say on that, I do think that would be really interesting and fun if the Mavs and Thunder found themselves matching up again in the playoffs. I do agree with you, and I think it would be a 6 or 7 game series again. It was 6 last year. But yeah, I think that would be a really, really good series. So certainly like that pick. Okay, so that's the top of the bracket in the West. Let's jump over to the East. Ant, let's stick with you. Who do you got? Who's moving on?
I got Celtics Bucks. I'm picking Celtics probably in 5 all the way through the East.
So pretty easy series again.
Let's see until we get to the conference finals. But yeah, I'll go. I love Giannis this year, but then you run into Boston and then all your dreams, die. So I'll go
They're
with Boston in 5.
Man. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Boston in 5 on to the conference finals. I've got Boston and Orlando here. I do think by this point, this is a pretty significant mismatch, I'm afraid. I love Orlando this year, but yeah, I'm going to go Boston in 5 here. Too much top to bottom. Again, like I talked about in the previous episode, I really like Orlando's depth. I think they're going to guard hard on the perimeter and stuff. They're just not quite there yet for me. So I'm going to say Boston. Did I say Boston in 5? I think I'm going to change that. I'm going to say Boston in 6 here, actually. And we kind of start to see that hangover creep in. Like, I'm going to say Boston kind of gets whacked in one of these games, and Orlando gets a double-digit win in this series in one of these games. But yeah, anyway, Boston in 6. Boston moves on to the conference finals for me there.
I like that. I also have the Celtics and the Magic here. I think you really said everything that needs to be said here, Rhett. Boston's just kind of too much. I do think Orlando's defense can, give Boston some pretty staggering troubles at times. But regardless of that, I think Boston's going to just kind of overwhelm them with their spacing, everything that they have, size. So I'm going to take Boston beating the Magic, clean sweep in 4.
Ooh, another sweep. You're kind of sweep happy, Jace.
I know. I'm liking the top teams, man. I'm liking
Okay,
them.
well, yeah, that's fun. Okay, so let's go over to that last semifinal matchup in the West. Jace, let's stick with you. Remind us who you got, and then give us who's moving on to the conference finals there.
Same teams that I was saying had faced off last year. I've got the Mavs taking on the Wolves. I think it's going to be a tougher matchup than it seemed like it was last year in the playoffs. With that being said, I still think the Mavericks offense really, in just complete honesty, I think it comes down to Luka again. I think he's too much. It will be a pretty hard-fought series, though, so I'm going to say the Mavs move on to match up with the Thunder in the conference finals, beating the Timberwolves in 6 games.
Okay, yeah. So I've also got Dallas and Minnesota in this matchup. I'm also going to go Dallas. I'm going to go Dallas in 7 here. 2 really, really, really good teams. Like, this could be a really, really fun series if it does get to this point. Yeah, I mean, the more I talk about Dallas, I think they're really well put together. That third guard is really the question mark for me. And I'm also curious to see what they're going to do at the power forward position, especially in the playoffs. I think they have some really good options. Like you could even do like a Gafford Lively big lineup. You could maybe play Najee Marshall a little bit there at the power forward if you're willing to sacrifice some of that size. So they're going to be a tough playoff out. And obviously Minnesota, like we talked about with some of these other teams, some new faces that are going to probably play a pretty prominent role. And yeah, I think it's going to work really well for Minnesota too. I just think Luka being Luka is too much. Got a lot, obviously with him and Kyrie doing their thing. Yeah, I'm going to stick with Dallas, and I'm going to stick with 7 there. So Dallas moves on to the conference finals in 7.
Nice. I got the Nuggets and Wolves. I'll say Wolves 2 seed, Nuggets 3 seed, matchup of last year, rematch. Crazy series last year. Like, if you look back at that matchup, the Wolves won the first 2 games, and then the Nuggets won the next 3. And then with a chance to close it out in game 6, they lose by 45. And then everyone thought the Nuggets would win game 7. They had a big lead. And then the Wolves take it. So as much as I want to pick the Wolves in like 5 or 6 because the Nuggets are slipping, these teams are like, I don't know. I think it'll be the same story, maybe closer games this year, but I'll go Wolves in 7 again.
Wolves in 7. Okay. So, Ant, you've got Minnesota and Oklahoma City in the conference finals in the West now, right?
Yep.
And Jace, you and I both have Oklahoma City, Dallas in the conference finals.
Right.
Okay, cool. So let's wrap up the East, and then we'll get into we'll start talking conference finals after that. Ant, let's stick with you there. Who you got? Who's moving on?
Am I up first?
Yeah, we'll do you.
Okay. So at least I got Knicks and Sixers. I don't know. I think the Knicks struggle a little bit, but I still like them more to make it out. I think, yeah, Embiid is sad not making the conference finals again. But yeah, I'll go Knicks and 7 over Philly.
Knicks and 7 over Philly. Okay, so I've got Knicks and Pacers here. It was a second-round series last year, of course. I'm going to go Knicks and 7 here. It was a 7-game series last year. Yeah, I just think they addressed it enough on the perimeter. This is what I was talking about. There's not many teams that are well-equipped to slow down Indiana in that regard. I think New York is one of them in the East. Maybe the best equipped in that specific, part of the game. So yeah, I'm going to go Knicks here, and I'm going to go another 7-game series for the Knicks. So Knicks and 7, moving on to the conference finals there for me.
I like it. My last matchup in the conference semis over in the East, I have the 2-seeded Knicks up against the 3-seed Bucks. We've talked about the Knicks quite a bit, you know. I really believe in them, what they can be. But I think that the Bucks are going to be, you know, having kind of a bounce back season, especially Giannis wanting to prove people, you know, that he's one of the top players in the NBA for a reason. He's a monster. I don't know how much the Knicks are going to be able to slow him down. So with that being said, I'm taking the Knicks in 6. I think that they're a super fun team on both ends of the court. Pretty deep, have a lot of different ways that they can attack on offense. So regardless, you know, of what they're going to be doing, I think that they're a very tough matchup for really anybody. And I think that they sneak it out in 6, head out to take on Boston.
All right, nice. So with that, we've got our conference finals matchup set. So I think what we'll do here, y'all, is we'll start in the West. And obviously, we'll talk through the series. We'll talk who our pick is to make it on through to the NBA Finals there, both the East and the West. And what I also want to do is we'll each make our pick for the conference finals MVPs. That's kind of a new thing, but we'll go ahead and throw that in there as well. So, Jace, let's stay with you. Let's go over to the West. Conference finals. Who's going to go to the NBA Finals this year out of the West?
Yeah, so I have the Thunder taking on the Mavericks. Like Anthony said, I agree. I think that this is a kind of a budding rivalry between these two teams. SGA and Luka, I think, should be, you know, pretty widely considered 2 of the top 5 players in the NBA. Super awesome. I think that's going to be real tough matchup for the Mavericks with the Thunder's depth, you know. They have so many different ways that they can attack this season with all the new pieces. Regardless of that, I think that the Mavericks are good enough to give them a real tough fight, but I am going to take the Thunder winning the Western Conference, going on to the finals. I'll take this series, Thunder in 6. It's going to be a real tight 6, real similar to, you know, how their series was last year. But with the Thunder moving on, I think that it's, you know, not a hot take or anything. The Western Conference Finals MVP is going to be SGA. I would be pretty surprised if it was anyone but him. But, you know, he's just so productive.
Nuclear, man.
Regardless of what's happening, he's going to get his part done and then some. So give me the Thunder winning in 6 with SGA winning the Western Conference Finals MVP.
Okay, yeah, so I've got Dallas and Oklahoma City there as well. And like you said last year, Jace, I know it was a 6-game series. It was literally played as close as you can play a 6-game series last year. The total points scored was tied.
Yep.
That's
at the end of the series.
Insane.
Yeah, and, you know, obviously it didn't go 7, so that would make it a closer series, you know, obviously. But, yeah, the points scored was tied in those 6 games. So, yeah, I've got Dallas and Oklahoma City. Like you said, Jace, I think it's going to be really, really tight. I'm going to go Oklahoma City in 7. You know, back to the thing of, like, your guy versus my guy. This is one of maybe the only team in the West other than Denver, which I already kind of talked about that. But I might give Luka the edge here, the slight edge over SGA. But I do think that SGA has quite a lot more help this year. Things just fit a little bit better, top to bottom, in terms of that 8 or 9 guy rotation here. So, yeah, I think a lot of the problems that the Mavericks gave us last year hopefully have been addressed, and, you know, in theory by the Thunder. But, yeah, really good series from Luka and Kyrie here, I think. But, yeah, I do think the Thunder had the edge, and I'm with you, Jace. I'm going to give the nod to SGA for the Western Conference Finals MVP. So I've got the Thunder winning the West this year, moving on to the finals.
And one more quick little piece for this matchup in particular. For the Thunder, I think this series is going to be one that the difference could be made by the addition of Alex Caruso. Having, you know, another good offensive player who can guard anybody
Just kind of, and to kind of like release that pressure valve on the offensive end, through like cutting and hopefully spacing.
Sure.
Yeah, that would have made a huge difference in the series last year, and yeah, hopefully it will this year.
I think the Thunder learned so much from that Mavs series last year. Like the minutes, like we had to deal with having Giddey on the floor, and then the two big guys that the Mavs had versus our one. Like we addressed both of those in the offseason. So like having Hartenstein, it's going to be great, those regular season matchups with the Mavs, to see how the teams play each other. But yeah, I think the Thunder addressed both of, what we were lacking in last year's series.
Okay, so you've got the Thunder moving on there too.
I already had the Thunder beating the Mavs in the semis, so I would have Thunder Wolves in the conference finals, which I think is going to be really tough for the Thunder because, my heart is telling me Thunder. My gut is kind of telling me the Wolves want to avenge the conference finals of last year. These teams play each other really well. They split the season series last year. Not like OKC won the 2 games at home. Like they split like the home and away too. I think the last 7 games they split 4 versus 3. Like they're very even. Same story will probably happen this year. I think the series goes 7 games. It's just game 7 will be in OKC. I'd rather play that in OKC than Minnesota. So let's go Thunder. Make it to the finals. SGA MVP.
Awesome. Thunder in 7 there for Anthony. Okay, let's stay with you, Ant. Let's go over to the East. Remind us who you've got, and then tell us who's making it on through to the finals there.
Celtics and Knicks. I don't know if I've made a single upset pick in my bracket. I've just gone straight through.
I wasn't even thinking about that. Yeah.
The seeding, like I think home court matters. I think
I agree.
I see a lot of similarities to last year's playoffs, like just the teams at the top. Like I just think they're right back there again. But Celtics and Knicks, the Knicks are good, but I still think the Celtics have I don't know. I mean, the Knicks will play them tough. So I'm not going to go Celtics in 4 or 5. I'll go Celtics in 6. But yeah, I think Celtics are still the cream of the crop in the East.
Okay, Celtics in 6 for you. And who is the MVP?
Let's go Porzingis, if he's healthy.
Oh, okay, Porzingis. I love that. Yeah,
against his former team.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so yes, right. That would be awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I've got Boston and the Knicks there as well. I'm gonna just get it out of the way and say I'm gonna go Knicks in 7 here.
Wow.
Go to the NBA final. So this is where the hangover comes into play.
This is recording, right? October 20th. 2024.
Yes, this is recording.
Not make the finals.
Yeah, October 20th, 3 p.m. Yeah, so I'm going to pick the Knicks over the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. Yeah, I mean, it's just the only reason I'm going to go with this pick is just, man, the Knicks, it's been so long since they've been in this position, playing Boston, who is kind of like the flagship program, of the Eastern Conference. It's just their time, I think, man. And I think it's just the hangover. I think Boston just kind of runs out of gas. Maybe they're not healthy. Maybe they just don't have it left in the tank, like I said, to get it done. But yeah, I'm going to go Knicks in 7 here. And I'm going to go Brunson, Eastern Conference Finals MVP.
Shoot, man, you should have let me go first. Save that one for last.
Maybe we'll move it around. Yeah.
I've got Boston and Knicks here as well. You called me out for this. I've had Boston kind of sweeping its way through up to this point. And I think that the Knicks are probably the best matchup with Boston in the East. Not just because they're 1 and 2, more so in kind of play style, roster construction, that type of stuff. But I just think that the Knicks have had such a tougher pathway to this point than Boston has. I think they kind of, get a little worn out coming into this series against fully rested Boston. Still, with that being said, Tibbs is not slowing down. So I do have Boston. Yep. Yeah. I do have Boston winning this series, going to the finals, but I'm going to have them doing it in 7 against the Knicks. I just don't think the Knicks are going to have enough left in the tank to really kind of push them over that big mountaintop. So real tough series, but Boston moving on, and finals MVP, not as fun. I'm taking Jason Tatum.
Tatum gets his MVP.
Kind of.
I fully agree with Rhett in the Boston hangover. I think that's real. I think we see that at some points in the regular season, maybe to start the playoffs. But like when it's time to lock in, and if they are fully healthy, like I just think they've been there, and the Knicks haven't in so long. But it would be a great series.
Yeah, no, I think that's extremely fair, and I think it would be a really good series too. I hope we get to see it, and I hope it is a good one. So I actually want to start with the finals, if that's all right with y'all, because of what I just said about the Knicks, right? So I picked the Knicks to win 3 7-game series. Okay, so I've got the Thunder playing the Knicks in the NBA Finals. Due to that, the Tibbs factor. Okay, and we're going to talk more about, as a slight spoiler alert, I'm going to talk more about Tibbs here in a minute. But just fatigue. Okay. I think by this time they've kind of put it all together schematically and with their rotations, and they know what they want to do in terms of the Knicks, but they're just out of gas at this point. So I'm going to take the Thunder here in 6 in the NBA Finals. I'm going to pick the Thunder as my NBA champions for this year, and we're going to finally climb that mountain this year, and we're going to hoist it. We're going to be the champions, Thunder in 6, and my man Shea, again, 2 is going to be the Finals MVP, and we'll be the class of the NBA this year. So, yeah, that's my pick.
Great pick.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. I've got, obviously Thunder, Boston matching up in my finals. The Thunder are so close, man. So close. But I do think Boston gets it done, repeats as champions. I think it'll be a real hard-fought series. Like I've mentioned, I think these are the 2 deepest, most well-rounded teams in the NBA. But with Boston having that experience, playing in the finals, playing for all the marbles, I think that this very well could be the last real road bump for the Thunder. But just in this one season, one series, I'm taking Boston in 6 over the Thunder. Boston's good, man. They have so much. For my finals MVP in this, I am going with Jason Tatum this year. I think that this is finally the time, that he kind of can take over in a series, even with, constantly being guarded by Dort, Caruso, Kaysen, J-Dub, sometimes even SGA. I think that he gets it done for Boston in a hard-fought 6 and gets finals MVP.
Not so fast.
Yes. I knew it. Yes.
You talk about fatigue. I think at this point in the playoffs are such a grind, and like I would have the Thunder playing like going through Dallas and going through Minnesota, like the gauntlet of the West. If they make it that far, they're going to be tired, whether they play Boston or New York in the finals.
Oh yeah,
but who cares? They're young. They're 21. Al Horford is how old?
They've got the depth to handle it if anybody does.
Yeah, and I don't know. The matchups are always interesting with Boston. We'll definitely pay attention to those in the regular season because we kind of have their number in OKC last 2 years.
We match up pretty good with them. I mean, they're really, really good and everything, but we do match up pretty good.
Yeah, and I think the Thunder, like we're not scared. Like the Celtics may blow out every other team at least once in those series. They're not blowing out the Thunder this year. The Thunder just, I think it is their time. I think they went all in for this season, even though they didn't go all in. Like we still think we have all the pieces in OKC. Can you imagine a parade in Oklahoma City? I can't. So that'd be.
Man,
we would be there.
Oh yeah,
we came so far. I will be there, man, if that happens. No matter what. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and Shea obviously MVP. Yeah, it's other guys will play well, but like we're not making it that far, and we're not winning it unless Shea's doing his thing. So yeah, Shea MVP.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, yeah. So with that, my champions are the Thunder. Ant's got the Thunder as well. Jace has the Celtics. So yeah, that's going to wrap it up for the playoff portion of this. Are y'all good to go? We'll move right on over into end of season awards if y'all are ready for that.
Let's do it.
Okay. So yeah, I think what we ought to do here is kind of move up the list. So we'll start with Clutch Player of the Year. So Ant, if you want to get us kicked off there, we'll start with that, and we'll just kind of move forward up into Most Improved, Coach of the Year, yada, 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 ending with MVP. So Ant, if you want to start us off with your pick for Clutch Player of the Year, we'll go from there.
I just was talking about SGA. I think he's clutch. I think he's an underrated pick for Clutch Player because he's hit his fair share of game winners already. And it's not just game winners. That Clutch Award, like we need to pull up the rules. It's how many,
It's basically like a clutch time points competition, right? Like, isn't that kind of how it's been in the past?
Yeah. And what may hurt Shea is like, the Thunder may...
Maybe we don't have that many clutch minutes.
If the Thunder does what they want to do and beat, jump on teams early, then they won't have that many close games. But if it is down to the wire, who's getting the ball. Shea, I think he's making it more times than he's missing it. So that's my pick.
Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna make a on the fly change to my pick here based on what you just said, Ant, in terms of those clutch minutes. I'm gonna go with Ja Morant here for this one. Now I already know Ja kind of got the cupcake MIP, and like he even said like I shouldn't have been most improved player. And I also saw this graphic, I think it was from NBA.com or whatever, or the NBA Twitter account, that was like players projected to like have a breakout year, and Ja's on.
Oh yeah. No, that was one of the worst even said, lists I've ever seen.
What am I doing here? Like I'm Ja,
right?
And he's Ja. Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm gonna pick Ja here. He's just like, even when he only had a handful of games, it felt like last year where he was healthy and he was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So they're really going to lean on him this year, of course, just like always. But yeah, I think they're gonna, I picked them to finish pretty high, obviously, as the 4 seed. So I think they're gonna win a lot of games. But I also kind of don't have them in my mind in that group of like cream of the crop in the West, that Oklahoma City, Minnesota, Dallas area. Like I think they're just kind of outside that. So some of those teams are going to, have them in some close games throughout the regular season, obviously kind of reintegrating with everybody healthy. So just due to the clutch minutes, I'm going to go with Ja there for Clutch Player of the Year.
I like that. My pick for Clutch Player, I'm going with Anthony Edwards. I've mentioned this, that I think, it could be kind of strange throughout the season figuring out, like what's the best way to run their systems offensively and defensively, just kind of with the new look. And I think that is going to lead to quite a few close games throughout the season. Regardless of that, I think the Wolves are going to win the majority of these close games. primarily just by kind of hopping on the back of Anthony Edwards, letting him get it done, whatever that takes. I think he's kind of got the mentality, like if it comes down to it, I'm getting the job done. And I think that's going to lead to a lot of success from him late in games. It's a weird award. Don't really know exactly how voters look at it.
Yeah, like the qualifications.
Yeah,
right.
But I'm going with Anthony Edwards. Honestly, another part of this, I think that the NBA national media type stuff wants him to be in the spotlight a little more. Getting him an award like this could, help kind of push him up that list of the top players in the NBA. So I think that Anthony Edwards comes away with the Clutch Player of the Year this year.
Cool. Okay, so there's Jace with Anthony Edwards. I've got Ja Morant. Anthony's got SGA for Clutch Player of the Year. So, Jace, let's stick with you. Let's move up to Most Improved Player. Let's start with your pick for Most Improved.
Yeah, so another award that's just kind of, like, what does it mean? So my Most Improved, I'm going with Josh Giddey in Chicago. I think he's going to get a lot of usage, a lot of freedom, a lot more than he had with the Thunder. The season before this past one, he averaged over 16 points, around like 6 rebounds, 6 assists. I think he's going to get, right around those numbers, a little more rebounding and assists, I think. But even though we've seen seasons, kind of similar to this, I think if he does, kind of take that leap back up to where he has been, I think that it's a weird selection, a really weird award to vote for. But I think that would be enough for him to kind of be viewed as a little bit of a breakout player in Chicago, getting him up there in talks for Most Improved this year.
All right. Yeah, so there's Giddey for Jace, Most Improved. I'm going to go for Most Improved Player. I'm going to go with Wemby for that. I know, I'm sure we're all familiar with like Wemby in terms of like, the rebounds, the blocks, the steals, the defensive stuff, et cetera, et cetera. If y'all had to guess, how many points per game would you guess that he averaged in his rookie season? Unless y'all just know right offhand.
I don't know off the top of my head. I would guess about 15, 16.
Mark.
15, 16. What'd you say, Ant? He averaged 21.9 points a game last year.
I was not close.
Okay, yeah. And I don't think people – I didn't think it was that high until I went and looked this morning. But I think this year – I talked about it in the first episode, talking kind of just like overlook for the year. But I think he's really going to break out. I think he's going to be like over 25 points per game this year. I talked about the steals and the blocks. He was a little over a steal a game, around 3.5 blocks a game, around 3.5 blocks a night, just over 10 rebounds. So I think the playmaking is going to take a bit of a leap, but the scoring is what's really going to pop off the page with Wemby. He's going to solidify himself this year as the top 10 player in the NBA.
This award is so hard. Yeah, it's up there with Clutch. It's like so hard to predict because it does, but it's so hard.
Doesn't make sense. I just don't.
It's probably going to be one of those guys that have a change of scenery, or something. They got a bigger role on their team. My pick was J-Dub, but I just switched it actually to Chet, and I know Chet won't. I know, and it may just be Most Improved Player.
Oh, okay. Two Thunder guys.
Because I just think Chet could have the same trajectory as Wemby. He's just behind. So Wemby he already broke past 20 points per game last year. What if Chet makes that jump next year or this year? He was at 16 points per game, jumping up to 20, maybe his 3-point percentage, he can get that above 40. Those would be big jumps that would really help a championship team. Yeah. But this award is not
what projects to be a really, really good team. So, that makes sense.
It could go to anyone across the league that improves their points per game by 10.
Right. Yeah, of course.
So, really hard to predict. So I'm just going to go Chet.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so Anthony's got Chet there for most improved. I've got Wemby. Jace has Giddey. And let's stay with you. Let's go to Coach of the Year. Who's your pick for Coach of the Year?
For these picks, but the reigning Coach of the Year. Why not? It depends. Like
back-to-back Coach of the Year.
If the Thunder have the far and away best regular season of any team, it could be somewhat of a gap between, and we'll see. Like Boston, I don't know. We'll see if the Thunder have the most wins out of any team. He's definitely going to be in that. He's going to be top 3 in Coach of the Year. He should be. So, like by default, I don't think they'll give it to him again. But I think he's the Coach of the Year. So, what do y'all think?
Okay, so you think he's the Coach of the Year, but you don't think he's going to win it? Is that what you're saying?
But I think he'll still be just as deserving.
So are you saying he's going to win it?
Well, there's a difference. Yeah, who gets the trophy and who? Because
that's the question. Who's going to win it?
Okay, sure. I think he's going to win it.
Well, but what in your mind, what you think is that you're not relevant.
Has there ever been a repeat?
It's who wins it.
Like, someone fact check that. Let's make history. Let's say the Thunder have a historic regular season.
I honestly don't know. I don't think it happens often.
Yeah, he repeats. Yep.
Back to back.
Okay, yeah, okay. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Tibbs here. New York Knicks. Yeah, we're all familiar with Tibbs. Obviously, pedal to the metal kind of guy. I just think there's going to be a lot of games to be won in this Eastern Conference for the teams at the top. If Porzingis isn't healthy throughout the regular season, I think they could make a legit push for the 1 seed. And I don't think we've really talked about that. I might have mentioned it on the first episode, but I think that's a definite possibility. With everybody new, if he's able to get that integrated, quick enough to where they're around that 60 wins total, which I think is totally possible. I think he'll be able to win it. So, yeah, I'm going to go Tibbs, Coach of the Year.
I like that. My pick, it's kind of funny to me that this is the guy I've kind of sunk my teeth in on. I'm going with Jason Kidd. I think last season, the Mavs throughout the season had stretches where it was kind of up and down. Weren't really sure, where they were going to finish the year. I think this season is going to be a lot more consistent with them. I had picked them, to finish as the 3 seed, I believe. And so I think if they get a lot more consistent, play throughout the regular season, I think that their numbers are going to be good enough. They're going to be high enough up to where Jason Kidd gets the nod and is this year's Coach of the Year.
Yeah, that's a good pick because at the end of the year and obviously through the playoffs, but at the end of the regular season, once they kind of figured it all out, they were like really, really, really good.
Right.
Like all the advanced stats, like loved them and everything. So, yeah, that's an interesting pick. So Jace, obviously Jason Kidd. I've got Tom Thibodeau. Anthony, I think maybe has Mark Stegmalt, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Coach Mark. Anthony's got Coach Mark.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, Jace, let's stick with you. Let's go to 6 man. Who's going to be your 6 man of the year pick, Jace?
Yeah, 6 man of the year is probably the award that I've kind of switched back and forth on the most up to this point. Final answer, I'm going with Benedict Mathurin for the Pacers. More than anything, I think it comes down to how good their offense is. And if he's the first guy off the bench, kind of, one of the first options in that second unit, I think he's going to have a real productive year. I've been a fan of Mathurin since he was at Arizona. I think that he could have, not a breakout in terms of like turn into an all-star, that type of thing. But I think he could be around close to 20 points per game, even if he is coming off the bench for the Pacers. So I'm going with Mathurin.
Cool. Yeah, that's interesting because I kind of feel like the Pacers could have I think kind of maybe like 3 realistic candidates for that award potentially. Like him, McConnell, because I think Nembhard's probably going to get the nod for the starting lineup, and then Jarris Walker, like super, super, super dark horse. But yeah, that's a good pick. Like Indiana, obviously, like we've talked about, they're going to have a lot of scoring pop. So that's a good pick.
Me too.
I've got Malik Monk.
Classic.
Anthony too.
It's Naz Reid.
I'm looking up who's the 6th man of the year because I'm blanking.
Yeah.
Nas.
Last year, right.
Nas. And I felt like Monk should have won it last year. Yeah. But yeah, just a huge get being able to like hang on to him. That was like a big surprise to me. I think a lot of people were surprised that they were able to hang on to him.
I was surprised.
Yeah. Obviously, super dynamic scorer. I've talked a ton about DeRozan, but just with him, I don't obviously know what the lineups are going to look like with Monk out there, but they just have so much gravity outside of him. Keegan Murray, De'Aaron Fox, obviously Sabonis we've talked about, and then adding DeRozan. I think there's going to be a lot of lineups that you could insert Monk into, and he's going to be very, very effective. So I'm going to Malik Monk for 6th man of the year.
Mainly,
and over to you. You said you got Monk as well.
Year. Some feel like he should have won it. Naz Reid already winning and kind of taking himself out of that, out of the running this year to repeat with the Timberwolves cat situation. But I'm high on the Kings. I think, like you mentioned, all the players they got: DeRozan, Fox, Sabonis, Keegan Murray. Like I have them in my top 5 in the West. I think they're going to make some noise. I think that helps Malik Monk's chances. Like he's going to be one of their best players on a good team. So that's why I got him.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, cool. So next we're going to do Rookie of the Year, and we'll start with you, Ant. But I do want to say this looks, based on the doc, like one of our more interesting awards picks. I personally think there's a lot of good candidates for this. It looks like we're going to kind of be all over the board here. So let's start with you, Ant. Rookie of the Year. Who do you got?
Goes by the name of Zach Edey, who dominated in college. I don't think he'll dominate in the NBA, but he's going to be good. I think, they had Steven Adams in Memphis, and they're going to want him to do the same thing. I think they like him already. I think the fans like him. He's a good guy. Rookie of the Year depends on the rest of the class. Obviously, like Chet had a Rookie of the Year worthy season, but he got Wemby. Like, it just depends on how everyone else performs. But I think if the Grizzlies are good, if Edey's playing a big role on that team as a rookie, like I think he has a chance to win it.
I really like this pick. It's different from mine, I will say, and I'll talk about mine here in just a second. But I really like this pick because of what you said there at the end, the role. It looks like he's going to start, like right off the bat. It looks like he's going to go in there and start immediately. May not be the case for my pick, but yeah, that certainly benefits him, I think. And you mentioned the Steven Adams thing. Obviously, he's not there anymore, but they kind of have a role defined for a player like Edey where he can come in and slide right into that role. And obviously, the college stuff speaks for itself. I know you mentioned that too, but dominant player at that level. Maybe he's not a superstar number one kind of guy potential-wise. I don't know, but I certainly do think he will contribute this year. So, yeah, I really like that pick a lot. For my pick, I've got Reed Shepherd in Houston. We've talked a lot about the too many mouths to feed both in this episode and the last, but like I said in that first episode going over the seeding for the season, I think Reed's just going to force Udoka's hand as far as playing him. I think he's going to end up playing a lot by the end of the year. his game just looks ready. I think he's going to impact things on the defensive end right away, but the shot making is what's really stood out to me in Summer League and preseason. He appears to be at least a 2-level scorer. I haven't seen a ton of him like finishing at the rim. I know he's kind of a smaller guard. That can be hard to do in this league, but man, some of the shots he's taken and making are pretty impressive. So I think Reed's going to find his way, into a significant role for Houston and be able to end up winning Rookie of the Year.
I like both of those picks. For my pick for Rookie of the Year, that I had been on Reed for a little bit. Another last-second audible. I'm going with Donovan Clingan in Portland. I think that you could make the argument that he's the most plug-and-play type of rookie this season.
I love Clingan. Yeah.
Awesome, really on both ends around the basket. I think he moves a lot better than a lot of people gave him credit for during last season at UConn. Eventually, throughout this season, I would not be surprised to see him kind of take a step and surpass DeAndre Ayton for the starting center role in Portland. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Clingan. I think he could, as early as this year, be one of the top rim protectors in the NBA. Portland, I don't think it's going to be a very successful team this year, but I think he's going to be a standout bright spot and just keep upping his usage as the season goes. And with his usage going up, I think his statistical averages are going to increase also and get him right in place for Rookie of the Year.
Cool. Yeah, I love it. We got some variation there. So Jace has Kling Kong, who I'm a big fan of. And one thing you didn't mention on Kling and Jace is the offensive stuff. Like I know they're trying to get him to kind of be like a modern stretch five. He didn't show a ton of that in college, I don't think. Did he, Jace?
No, not really.
It wasn't the strength of his game, certainly.
No.
If he can do that, that's great. But he's a really good offensive player. Playing in that UConn system there is a huge benefit. That's a pretty complex system offensively at the college level. And he seems to be a really good processor. He's a really good passer for his position.
Really good playmaker out of the high post, especially.
Yeah.
He's
similar to what we've been talking about with like Hartenstein in that way.
Similar. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, they're not,
right.
Not trying to like compare the two really,
right.
but
no.
Yeah, kind of similar kind of roles potentially down the line.
Sure.
But yeah, all three of those guys are really good players, I think. So yeah, Jace has Klingan. I've got Reed Shepherd. Anthony has Zach Edey there. Okay, let's move to Defensive Player of the Year. Jace, let's start with you there. Who do you got?
Yeah, so I've kind of got a little bit of a weird take on this one. Spoiler alert, I have Bam winning Defensive Player of the Year this year.
I don't think that's a weird take.
Well, I think it's just weird due to the fact that there's one player that...
Yeah, we've all seen the lines.
The
and
heavy
favorite. Yeah, I get that. But I don't think it's crazy.
I think this year it's going to come down to Bam's versatility. There's been a lot of talk about him playing more of a 4 than a 5 this season.
Well, I want to mention another rookie, Khalil Ware.
Sure.
There. Because, I could see them giving him some minutes because he's looked really good so far.
Right.
And he probably will have to play 5, right, Jace?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think it can at least defend at the NBA level, in spurts for the 5. So, moving Bam a little bit more to the 4 makes a lot of sense.
And I think...
please continue. I just wanted to mention that.
Sure. Moving Bam to the 4, like I said, I think is going to allow him to be a lot more versatile than he has been, especially when he's playing with a player like Ware. He can roam more. He doesn't have to always be the one meeting somebody at the rim. But Bam, I've never really truly considered Bam a 5 in the NBA. I know that's kind of the role he served with Miami, but he can move, man. He
really can do it all on that end. Yeah, he's so good.
I think that, with how little discussion he's had around Defensive Player of the Year throughout his career, I think that people are going to kind of try to right the ship with him. And I think he comes home with it regardless of if Wemby's averaging like 5.5 blocks a game. Like, I think the impact is where it's going to be more so for Bam than it is in the statistics that show up for him.
Yeah, so like I said, like we've obviously all seen the betting lines on this award in particular. So like if you want to make a bet on this award, that might be a pretty good bet because everybody is plus money except for the guy who I'm going to pick to win this award, Wemby. I think last I saw he's like minus 160 to win this award or something.
He's pulling away.
It's historically this has been a blocks competition. I think Wemby should have won it last year based on what I saw. I think just the team wasn't good enough. I think that gets corrected this year. I don't really see a reason he would drop off in that regard. Like, if any, I'm thinking about like Harrison Barnes. Like, obviously, I know he's not like a premier 3-and-D player in this league, but he's been in the NBA a long time, and he'll understand, the infrastructure that they're going to try to implement. Pop's obviously very smart. So if anything, I think they maybe have got a little bit better on that end from last year. I'm going to go with Wemby. He's going to have, I don't even know what he's going to do blocks-wise. It'll probably be around what he did last year.
It'll be terrifying.
He'll probably be over a steal again, I'd imagine. He's just that good as a defensive player.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you both and go with Rudy. I'm just kidding. Not gonna happen. Nah. I think everyone's
don't do this,
giving that award to Gobert. I think it's Wemby's turn for, I don't know how many he's going to win in his career. It's going to be so many. Yeah, and he already is averaging more than 3 blocks a game. I don't even know how many he could. I'm not even going to try to predict how many he can get. Yeah, because it's anytime you shoot in the paint and he's there,
it's hard to say. Yeah,
so sure.
Really,
we saw it a lot last year
too.
Yeah, we saw it a lot last year too. Like I couldn't believe what I was seeing. People going into the lane and just not shooting,
turning around
because he's there.
Turning their back to the basket and pulling the ball.
So if you have a
a
spare change to bet on Bam, go for it. But just the safe bet is Wemby.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I could not, in good conscience, recommend betting on Wemby, even though I think he's going to win it. That's just, for an award like this, that's just not a good enough line to bet on. But whatever. Cool. Okay, so Ant and I both have Wemby there for Defensive Player of the Year. Jace has Bam. Okay, so I think this is the last one. So if there's anything else y'all want to talk about, dark horse candidates or anything like that, anything else you're interested in before we get to MVP?
I'm ready to dive right in.
All right, let's do it. Yeah, so let's wrap it up with MVP. Ant, let's stay with you there.
SGA is my pick.
Let's go MVP. Who's your pick?
I think there's a lot of factors that will go. MVP is always very interesting. It's very, not political, but there's a lot of exactly. That's a great way of putting it, because
it can get very narrative
SGA
driven.
That a lot of people voted for last year. If we are in the 1 seed again and we do have a really good regular season, they're going to be like, okay, then it's just the MVP has turned into, okay, it's his turn to get it. And so we'll see.
Yeah,
I think
I certainly think you can make that argument.
Here.
Yeah.
He scores a lot of points. He's going to score more than SGA. He'll be well over 30. But unless Shea has a big drop off, he should be close to that 30 points per game again. I just think he'll be in that conversation for sure, being the 1 seed. So I'll go with Shea.
Yeah. So I initially had Luka here as my pick for MVP. Like we've talked about, I think he's due for an all-time great all-time great offensive season here this year. I think that's going to happen. I think he's going to make a really strong case to win this award. And he's been right in the thick of it for quite some time now. Obviously he's undeniably great. I changed it kind of last minute after the Hartenstein and J-Dub injuries. So like we talked about with Hartenstein, he's probably going to miss about 20 games. Dub doesn't look to be as serious, hopefully. But it's likely, I think, that he's probably going to miss some time. So if SGA is able to keep this thing afloat for the Thunder through that 20 games where we're not fully healthy, and obviously things change throughout the year in terms of health with our team and every other team in the league, of course, so things can change. But if SGA is kind of able to steer the ship through those first 20 games where we're not 100% right and we're still looking like everybody thinks as far as like being a dominant team in the West, I think he's going to, that'll be enough to kind of wrap this up fairly early for him, assuming everything else goes the way we expect it to. Jace, you did mention, with all the additions that we made and just the team overall hopefully improving, SGA's counting stats could potentially dip a little bit better. But I think what Anthony said, as far as if we're the 1 seed again and he is, obviously the best player on that team again in this conference, taking into account what he did last year, because I kind of think you have to, I think that'll be a pretty compelling case. And I think he'll be able to secure the MVP award this
outlier.
year.
Like if Luka is scoring 36 a game like James Harden did.
Right, things can always change. Yeah.
The triple-double season that Russ had, where like those guys deserve it.
And he can do that.
But if it's more of like everyone's kind of even, SGA, could have, should have, would have had it last year, they're number 1 seed again, I could see, that helps his case.
Yeah, so sorry that this isn't a super surprising fun turn, but
homers.
I also have SGA. More than anything, I think that it's going to be kind of like a team award. I think the Thunder are going to stand out in the West, especially as the best team. Regardless of that, I do think that it's going to come down to a really tight 2-man race with him and Luka. But regardless of Luka averaging like 33, 8 and 8 this year, I think that they're going to give SGA the benefit of the doubt with the team's success, because I do expect there to be, maybe like a 5 or 6 game difference between the Thunder and the Mavs. I think that's going to be kind of the deciding factor this year, and SGA is going to bring it to the O and get us our 3rd different MVP season in Oklahoma City.
Hey, Rhett, do you know the odds?
So we're unanimous on SGA for the pick
this
there.
year?
So
I wonder what SGA is on that. That could be a good bet if SGA is like.
I could look it up. Luka's the favorite.
Is probably up there too.
No, SGA's top 2. I'm pretty sure. I'm looking at it now. Okay, yeah. So we've got Luka. This is MGM Sportsbook that I'm looking at here. We've got Luka plus 350 is the favorite. Shea plus 400 in second. Jokic plus 475 in third. Then there's a pretty significant drop off. Giannis plus 850. Anthony Edwards plus 1200.
No Brunson.
Tatum plus 1500. Then from there, obviously, you're kind of getting into your dark horse candidates, but it does vary, between the books. Some people have Jokic in second. Some people have Shea and Luka in a pretty dead heat. So, yeah, if you have a guy you like, and you want to bet on it, shop it around. Look at what your book's giving you, and there may be a good bet out there, but I wouldn't know. Cool. All right. Yeah. So with that, that's going to be our last preseason sort of lead up episode. So next week, we're going to just kind of enjoy the first week of games, see how everybody's looking, see if anything stands out to us. We'll just kind of talk through what we saw throughout the week. Hopefully soon, too, we'll start talking about some prospects for the upcoming draft. That's kind of Jace's wheelhouse. So hopefully Jace will start giving us some guys to kind of start watching, get caught up on. Looking forward to the NBA draft. But yeah, hopefully everybody enjoys the first week of ball, and we'll see you again next week.